Let me share with you what I mean. In the beginning was the unconditioned awareness of being, and this awareness desired to express itself. The supreme intelligence that we call God began to imagine, and all of creation came into being. The worlds were framed by the word of God, meaning that God's imaginal acts became the realities of experience. And you, being made in the image of God, possess this same creative power. I say to you, whatever you desire, first you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If you want success in your endeavors, you must first enter the state of consciousness where you feel that success is already yours. If you want health, you must first assume the feeling of being healthy. If you want wealth, you must first enter into the state of the wealthy. The secret lies in a principle simple that most dismiss it. Consciousness is the only reality, and what you are conscious of being, you become. All things exist in the human imagination, and it is through the human imagination that things are made manifest. Consider a simple example from my own experience. Years ago, I desired to travel to Barbados to see my family, but there seemed to be no way for this to happen. The tickets were too expensive, my commitments in New York too pressing. Yet, instead of accepting these so-called facts, I began to live in the assumption that I was already in Barbados. Each night before sleep, I would imagine the waves crashing on the shore, feeling the warm Barbadian sun on my face, hearing my family's voices welcoming me home. I persisted in this assumption, feeling the joy and gratitude of being in Barbados. And within a matter of weeks, against all reasonable expectations, I received a letter from my brother with money for passage to Barbados. What seemed impossible to my reasoning mind was made manifest through the power of my imaginal act. Do you see the principle at work? I did not manipulate events externally. I did not struggle or strain. I simply changed my state of consciousness, and the outer circumstances rearranged themselves to match this new inner conviction. This is why I tell you to live as if everything always works out. Because when you enter that state of consciousness, when you truly believe and feel it to be true, the universe moves in harmony with your assumption. This is not wishful thinking. This is the law of consciousness. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. These words from Proverbs reveal the creative principle of all existence. Your thoughts, imbued with feeling, create the conditions and circumstances of your life. The outer world is nothing more than a reflection of your inner assumptions. Many of you come to me asking how to manifest specific desires: a new job, a loving relationship, improved health, financial abundance. And I always tell you the same thing. You must first assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must live from the end. If you want a new job, you must feel the satisfaction and security of having that job now. If you want a loving relationship, you must feel the joy and companionship of that relationship now. If you want health, you must feel the vitality and strength of perfect health now. For imagination creates reality, and what you assume, you become. Your assumption, though false to others if persisted in, will harden into fact. This is the creative law by which all things come into being. But I hear some of you say, Neville, I have tried to imagine good things, but nothing happens. To this I respond, have you truly entered the state? Have you actually assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled? Or have you merely wished and hoped, while secretly believing in limitation and failure? The difference is crucial. When you truly assume a state, you live and think from it. You do not mentally stand outside it, hoping it will come to pass. You step into it completely, embody it fully, and sustain that feeling regardless of appearances. Consider the biblical story of Daniel. When he was thrown into the den of lions, he did not focus on the danger around him. He maintained an inner state of peace and safety, knowing that God, his own wonderful human imagination, was with him, and the lions could not touch him, because he refused to accept the state of fear that would have made them real threats. This is what it means to live as if everything always works out. It means to so fully occupy the state of your fulfilled desire that you expect nothing but the best, regardless of what your senses may temporarily report. Now let me clarify something important. To live as if everything always works out does not mean ignoring problems or being irresponsible. It means approaching challenges from a higher level of consciousness where solutions become self-evident. When you assume the state of the wish fulfilled, you naturally take the actions that someone in that state would take. If you assume health, you will find yourself naturally making healthier choices. If you assume abundance, you will find yourself recognizing and acting upon opportunities that lead to greater abundance. If you assume loving relationships, you will naturally embody the qualities that foster love. Your outer actions flow from your inner state. So first change the inner state, and the outer actions will follow naturally and effortlessly. I want to share with you a profound truth that few understand. Time is purely psychological. It does not exist in the way most believe it does. What we call the future is simply a present possibility pressing upon us, seeking expression. And what we call the past is but a present memory. All of existence, past, present, and future, exist now, in this eternal moment. And it is your present assumption that determines which aspect of this infinite now you will experience as your reality. This is why I tell you to live as if everything already works out. Because in the realm of true reality consciousness, it already has. Your desired state already exists as a present possibility. Your job is not to create it, but to select it through your assumption and thereby make it your present experience. Let me illustrate this with another personal experience. Once I found myself in need of a larger lecture hall for my talks in New York. The current venue was too small for the growing audience, but larger halls were expensive and difficult to secure. Instead of fretting over this problem, I simply assumed that the perfect venue had already been provided. I would walk through the streets of New York, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for this wonderful new hall that was now mine for use. I did not know how it would come about, but I persisted in the assumption that it was already done. And within a matter of days, I received a call from a gentleman who offered me the use of a beautiful hall at a price I could easily afford. He had attended one of my lectures and felt compelled to make this offer. Do you see how it works? I did not make this happen through physical effort. I made it happen by selecting a state of consciousness in which it was already accomplished, and then living from that state. The outer circumstances had no choice but to rearrange themselves to match my inner conviction. This is the secret of living as if everything always works out. You acknowledge that in consciousness, which is the only reality, it already has worked out. And then the so-called outer world must conform to this inner reality. But some of you may be thinking, this sounds wonderful. But what about when things go wrong? What about disappointments and failures? My answer to this is simple yet challenging. There are no failures when you understand the law of consciousness. What appears as failure is simply the result of your assumptions and can be changed by changing those assumptions. If you find yourself experiencing something unwanted, ask yourself, what am I assuming that makes this experience necessary? For every experience reflects some belief, some assumption that you hold. Change the assumption and you change the experience. Remember the story of Job in the Bible. The thing I feared has come upon me. Job's fears, which were nothing more than negative assumptions, created the very experiences he dreaded. But when he changed his consciousness, when he stopped fearing and started imagining better things, his fortunes were restored. So when apparent setbacks occur, do not despair. Do not expose, see them as temporary reflections of past assumptions, which can be altered by your new assumptions. Live as if everything always works out, not as a denial of present service, but as a commitment to the truth that consciousness is the only reality and your consciousness can be changed from this moment forward. Many approach life as though success were determined by external factors, economic conditions, other people's opinions, past failures, or personal limitations. But I tell you, the only limits to your life are those you accept in your own thinking. Change your thinking, or more accurately, change your consciousness, and you change your world. Now let me address a common misconception. Many believe that to assume a state means to verbally affirm or to visualize it. These practices can be helpful, but they are merely techniques to aid in the essential act, which is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is not enough to say, everything works out for me. It is not even enough to visualize things working out. You must capture the feeling, the conviction, the certainty that everything is working out now. For feeling is the secret, the creative power that brings all things into being. How do you know when you have successfully captured this feeling? You will know by a peculiar sense of relief. A feeling of it is done. There is no more anxiety, no more striving, no more wondering how it will happen. There is only a quiet confidence that it is finished. And once you have this feeling, you must persist in it. The Bible says, I shall persist until I succeed. This persistence is not a struggle. It is simply the natural dwelling in the state of the wish fulfilled, regardless of appearances to the contrary. Some time ago, a woman came to me in great distress. Her husband had left her for another woman and she wanted him to return. I told her that if she wanted her husband back, she must assume the feeling of being happily married to him again. She must live from the assumption that he had already returned and that their marriage was more loving than ever. At first, she found this difficult. The evidence of her senses, the empty house, the divorce papers, his relationship with another woman, seemed to contradict the assumption I was asking her to make. But I reminded her that consciousness is the only reality and that the outer world must conform to her inner assumptions. So she began to sleep each night as though her husband were lying beside her. She would mentally hear his voice, feel his presence, experience the joy of their reunion. During the day, she would wear her wedding ring and think from the assumption of being a happily married woman. Within a month, her husband called her. He was confused about his feelings, he said. He missed her. Could they meet to talk? This led to a reconciliation and eventually moved back home. Their marriage was indeed restored, and according to her, it was stronger than before. What happened here? Did she somehow manipulate or control her husband? Absolutely not. She simply changed her own consciousness, her own assumptions. And since consciousness is the only reality out her, circumstances, including her husband's feelings and actions, had to rearrange themselves to match her new inner conviction. This is the power you possess. This is why I urge you to live as if everything always works out. Because when you truly assume this state, when you live from it with conviction, the universe has no choice but to reflect it back to you in the form of outer experience. Now there is another aspect of this principle that I must address. When I tell you to live as if everything always works out, I am not suggesting that every specific desire you have will be fulfilled exactly as you imagine it. Sometimes what comes is even better than what you had specifically envisioned. The deeper truth is that when you live in a state of knowing that everything works out for your good, you open yourself to infinite possibilities that your limited human mind could not conceive. You align yourself with the divine flow, which always moves toward greater expansion, greater joy, greater fulfillment. I have seen this in my own life countless times. I would assume a specific state, seeking a particular outcome. And while that outcome might or might materialize exactly as imagined, something would always come that perfectly fulfilled the essence of my desire, often in ways far more wonderful than I had originally conceived. This is why it is wise to combine specific imaginal acts with a general assumption that all is well, that everything is working together for your good. This keeps you both focused and flexible, both intentional and open to even greater possibilities than your current mental framework can envision. The Bible tells us, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for them that love him. This means that what awaits you when you live in the assumption that everything works out is far greater than anything you can currently imagine. So live boldly in that assumption. Know that the very intelligence that created the stars and sustains the universe is working on your behalf, guiding you toward your highest good, arranging the perfect circumstances for your growth and joy. Let me tell you about a young man who came to my lectures years ago. He was struggling financially, barely able to pay his rent, working a job he despised. I shared with him this principle we're discussing tonight to live as if everything always works out. He began to assume the feeling of financial security and meaningful work. He would fall asleep each night feeling the relief and satisfaction of having plenty of money and doing work he loved. He would imagine the congratulations of friends, the feeling of looking at his bank statement with satisfaction, the joy of waking up excited to go to work. Within 3 months, he was offered a position at a company he greatly admired, doing work aligned with his passions and talents. The salary was twice what he had been making. What's more, he met his future wife through this new job, something he hadn't specifically imagined, but which fulfilled his deeper desire for companionship and love. Had he focused only on the specific job he thought he wanted, or the exact amount of money he thought he needed, he might have missed this greater fulfillment that was awaiting him. By living in the general assumption that everything works out perfectly, he opened himself to possibilities beyond his limited conception. This is the art of living wisely with this principle. You combine specific imaginal acts for the things you currently desire with a general assumption that all is well, that the intelligence within you knows what you truly need and is guiding you perfectly. Now let me address another important aspect of living as if everything always works out. It is the attitude toward what we call problems or challenges. When you truly embody this principle, you no longer see problems as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth and redirection. Every apparent setback contains within it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Every closed door points you toward an open door that leads to something better. This is not positive thinking. This is the absolute law of consciousness. When you live as if everything always works out, you develop a deep trust in the unfolding of life. You know that even what appears as delay, disappointment, or defeat is actually part of a larger pattern leading to your good. With this trust comes a profound peace that transcends understanding. I recall a man who attended my lectures who had invested heavily in a business venture that failed. He lost nearly everything. Most people would have been devastated, caught in a state of regret, anxiety, and fear. But this man, understanding the principle we're discussing, chose to assume that this apparent failure was actually setting him up for something far better. He would say to himself, this is working out perfectly for me. This apparent loss is actually guiding me toward my greater good. He felt genuine gratitude for the experience, trusting that it contained a valuable lesson and a new direction. Within 6 months, he had started a new business based on insights gained from the failure of the previous one. This new venture proved far more successful than the original could ever have been. Looking back, he could clearly see that what had seemed like a devastating loss was actually the perfect redirection he needed. This is the kind of trust I am inviting you to cultivate. Not a passive resignation to whatever happens, but an active assumption that everything is working together for your good. The Bible tells us, all things work together for good to them that love God. And who is this God they love? It is your own I am, your own consciousness. When you love the I am within you, when you trust it completely, all things do indeed work together for your good. Now, I want to speak about something that few teachers address. When you live as if everything always works out, you must be willing to let go of how you think it should work out. This is perhaps the most challenging aspect of this principle, but also the most liberating. Many people try to control exactly how their desires will be fulfilled. They not only imagine what they want, but also try to dictate precisely how it must come to them. This is a mistake that often delays or prevents the manifestation of their desires. When you truly live as if everything always works out, you surrender the how to the infinite intelligence of your deeper self. You trust that the way will be shown, that the perfect circumstances will arrange themselves, often in ways far more elegant and efficient than your limited human mind could have devised. This surrender is not weakness. It is the highest form of spiritual power. It is the recognition that your conscious mind sees only a tiny fraction of the infinite possibilities available, while your deeper self, the God within you, sees all and knows the perfect way to bring about your good. I am reminded of a woman who desperately wanted to move to a specific city where she felt her career would flourish. She had tried repeatedly to secure a position there, but had been unsuccessful. In frustration, she came to me for advice. I suggested that instead of focusing on this specific city and the exact way she thought her desire should be fulfilled, she should simply assume the feeling of having a fulfilling career and a wonderful place to live. The where and how was not for her to determine. She began to live in this more general assumption, feeling gratitude for her perfect position and ideal living situation, without specifying the location or circumstances. Within weeks, she was offered a position she had never even considered, in a different city entirely, but one that offered everything she had truly desired in terms of career growth, lifestyle, and living environment. Had she continued to insist that her desire must be fulfilled in exactly the way she had originally conceived, she would have missed this perfect opportunity. This is the wisdom of surrendering the how while maintaining absolute faith in the fulfillment of the what. It is to say, this or something better now manifests for me, rather than it must be exactly this, in exactly this way. When you live as if everything always works out, you develop a flexibility, an openness to infinite possibilities that actually accelerates the manifestation of your desires. You allow yourself to be surprised by grace, to be astonished by the creative solutions that emerge when you trust the process completely. And now, my friends, I wish to address the most profound aspect of this principle. When you live as if everything always works out, you are actually aligning yourself with the fundamental nature of reality. For the universe is, at its core, supportive, abundant, and oriented toward growth and fulfillment. The appearance of struggle, lack, and limitation is just that, an appearance, a temporary distortion produced by false assumptions. When you assume that everything works out perfectly, you are not adopting a fake positive attitude. You are aligning yourself with the truth of existence. This is why this principle works so reliably. It is not some magical technique or psychological trick. It is simply the recognition and embodiment of how reality actually functions. The universe is not against you, it is for you. Life is not a struggle to overcome obstacles. It is a joyful unfolding of ever greater good. When you live from this recognition, life becomes increasingly effortless. Problems solve themselves. Opportunities appear as if by magic. Relationships harmonize. Health improves. Abundance flows. Not because you are manipulating reality, but because you are aligning yourself with the true nature of reality. Now I want to share with you a practice that will help you embody this principle more fully. Each night, as you lie in bed preparing for sleep, review the events of your day from the perspective that everything is working out perfectly for you. Even the challenges, the disappointments, the apparent setbacks, see them all as part of a perfectly orchestrated plan for your growth and fulfillment. Feel genuine gratitude for everything that happened, knowing that it is all moving you toward your good. Then, from this state of gratitude and trust, imagine the fulfillment of your current desires. See them as already accomplished. Feel the joy, the relief, the satisfaction of having what you desire now. Fall asleep in this state of fulfillment and trust. This practice done consistently will revolutionize your life. For the state of consciousness in which you fall asleep is particularly powerful in conditioning your subconscious mind, which then goes to work to bring about the conditions and circumstances that match your assumptions. Remember, your subconscious mind does not argue with you. It simply accepts what you feed it through your conscious assumptions and then works faithfully to bring these assumptions into your experienced reality. This is why the state in which you fall asleep is so crucial. It sets the tone for the manifestations that will follow. Many of you have heard the biblical phrase, "Let not the sun go down upon your anger." This is not merely moral advice, it is practical instruction in the art of conscious creation. To fall asleep in a state of anger, worry, or fear is to impress these states upon your subconscious mind, which then manifests corresponding experiences in your life. Conversely, to fall asleep in a state of confidence that everything is working out perfectly is to impress this assumption upon your subconscious, which then goes to work to bring about experiences that confirm this belief. So practice this nightly review and revision. See your day through the lens of perfect unfoldment. Feel gratitude for all of it. Then imagine the fulfillment of your desires as you drift into sleep. Do this consistently and watch how your life transforms. Now, Let me address a question that often arises in relation to this principle. Never people ask if everything always works out. Why do I see so much evidence to the contrary in my life and in the world? This is a profound question that deserves a thoughtful answer. What you see in your life and in the world is not evidence of how reality fundamentally works. It is evidence of the assumptions that have been collectively and individually accepted. The appearance of things not working out is simply the manifestation of the assumption that things don't work out. When you change your assumption, when you live as if everything always works out, you begin to see evidence of this new assumption in your experience. At first, it may be small things, a problem that resolves itself unexpectedly, an opportunity that appears out of nowhere. But as you persist in your new assumption, the evidence grows until your entire life reflects the truth that everything does indeed work out perfectly. As for the wider world and its apparent problems, remember that what you see is filtered through your own consciousness. When you assume that everything works out, you begin to notice the evidence of this even in world events. You see the growth that comes from challenges, the new systems that emerge from the breakdown of old ones, the way humanity evolves through its difficulties. This does not mean becoming detached or uncaring about the world's struggles. On the contrary, by holding the assumption that everything works out perfectly, you actually contribute to the resolution of these struggles. For collective reality, like individual reality, is shaped by consciousness. And every individual who shifts to a higher assumption helps elevate the collective consciousness. I want to share with you a story from my own experience that illustrates the power of this principle in action. Years ago, I was scheduled to give a lecture in a city I had never visited before. My train was delayed, and by the time I arrived, it was already past the scheduled start time of my talk. I had no idea where the venue was located, and this was long before cell phones or GPS. Most people would have panicked in this situation. But I had been living for years in the assumption that everything always works out perfectly for me. So instead of worrying, I simply maintained this assumption. I hailed a taxi and told the driver I needed to get to a lecture venue, though I couldn't recall the exact address. To my amazement, the driver said, "Are you Mr. Goddard? I was just at the venue where you're supposed to speak. They sent me to look for you at the train station. But I missed you there." He proceeded to drive me directly to the venue where the audience was patiently waiting. Was this luck? A coincidence? I do not believe so. It was the natural outworking of my assumption that everything always works out perfectly. The outer circumstances had to rearrange themselves to match this inner conviction. I have experienced this kind of coincidence countless times in my life, and I know many of you have as well. When you live in the assumption that everything works out, these synchronicities become the norm rather than the exception. This is because at the deepest level, there are no separate events or circumstances. All is connected in the one consciousness that underlies all of creation. When you assume a state within consciousness, you activate a pattern of connections that brings about the manifestation of that state in your experience. So live boldly in the assumption that everything always works out. Know that the entire universe is conspiring for your good, arranging every detail perfectly, guiding you unfailingly toward the fulfillment of your desires. And now I want to address what may be the most important aspect of this principle. When you live as if everything always works out, you are not merely changing your personal circumstances, you are fulfilling your divine purpose. For your purpose here is to express the infinite potential of the God within you, to manifest more and more of the divine nature in your lived experience. God, the infinite consciousness that is your true identity, is absolute good, absolute abundance, absolute love, absolute wisdom. When you assume that everything works out perfectly, you are allowing more of this divine nature to express through you. You are fulfilling the very purpose for which you came into being. This is why living from this assumption feels so good, so right, so natural. It is alignment with your true self. It is the remembrance of who you really are. It is the reclaiming of your divine heritage. So do not think of this principle as merely a technique for getting what you want. Think of it as the pathway to becoming who you truly are, a divine being having a human experience, a creator made in the image of the creator, an expression of infinite potential in finite form. When you live as if everything always works out, you are saying to the universe, I remember who I am. I reclaim my divine nature. I accept my role as a conscious creator. And the universe responds with an enthusiastic yes to this remembrance, this reclamation, this acceptance. As we draw to a close this evening, I want to leave you with a simple but powerful practice. For the next 7 days, I challenge you to live completely in the assumption that everything always works out perfectly for you. No matter what appears in your outer experience, maintain this assumption without wavering. When you wake in the morning, affirm to yourself, everything is working out perfectly for me today. Feel the relief, the confidence, the trust that comes with this assumption. Then go about your day watching for the evidence that confirms your assumption. When challenges arise, and they will remind yourself this too is working out perfectly, look for the gift, the lesson, the redirection contained within the challenge. Maintain your assumption regardless of appearances. At night, review your day through the lens of perfect unfoldment. See how everything contributed to your growth and good, even if you don't yet understand exactly how. Feel gratitude for the perfect unfolding of your life. Then sleep in the confidence that tomorrow will unfold with the same perfection. Do this for 7 days without missing a single moment of alignment with this assumption. At the end of the 7 days, look back and notice how your experience has shifted, how problems have resolved themselves, how opportunities have appeared, how your inner state has transformed. This 7-day practice can be the beginning of a completely new way of living a life of trust, a flow of alignment with your divine nature, a life where struggle gives way to ease, where fear gives way to confidence, where limitation gives way to abundance. For when you truly live as if everything always works out perfectly, you are living in the truth of your being. And the truth, as we are promised, will set you free. Now, my friends, go forth in the confidence that everything is working out perfectly for you, not because you wish it to be so, not because you have mentally affirmed it, but because it is the absolute truth of your existence. You are divine consciousness expressing in human form, and the entire universe is conspiring for your unfoldment, your growth, your fulfillment. Live from this truth, embody this truth, become this truth, and watch as your life transforms into the glorious expression of divine potential that it was always meant to be. Remember, consciousness is the only reality. And when your consciousness is aligned with the truth that everything always works out perfectly, then that becomes your experienced reality. It is the law, as infallible as gravity, as certain as mathematics. The choice is yours, as it has always been. Choose to live as if everything always works out, and it will. This is my promise to you, based not on theory, but on decades of testing this principle in my own life and witnessing its operation in the lives of countless others. Trust the process. Trust the law. Trust your divine nature, and all will be well, more gloriously well than your human mind can currently conceive. Thank you for your attention this evening. May you go forth in the certainty that everything always works out perfectly for you, now and forever.
Imagine yourself seated in a grand auditorium, the air thick with anticipation. The lights dim, and a spotlight illuminates the stage. I, Neville Goddard, step forward to address you on a matter of utmost importance. The willingness to give up your present limitations. As I gaze upon your eager faces, I see the infinite potential that resides within each of you. Yet I also perceive the invisible chains of limitation that bind you to your current circumstances. These chains, my dear listeners, are not forged by any external force, but by the very thoughts and beliefs you hold within your minds. Tonight, we shall embark on a journey of transformation. We will explore the vast landscape of your imagination and unlock the power that lies dormant within you. For it is only when you are willing to give up your present limitations that you can truly step into the life you desire and deserve. Let us begin by understanding the nature of your limitations. These are not physical barriers or insurmountable obstacles. No, they are merely thoughts, ideas that you have accepted as truth. But I say to you, with unwavering certainty, that these limitations are as flimsy as a house of cards, ready to collapse at the slightest breath of your newfound awareness. Consider for a moment the things you believe to be impossible in your life. Perhaps you think you cannot achieve great wealth, or find true love, or attain perfect health. These beliefs, my friends, are the very limitations that keep you tethered to a life that is less than what you are capable of living. But I ask you, who decided these things were impossible? Who declared that you must live within these confines? The answer, though it may be difficult to accept, is you. You have accepted these limitations as your reality, and in doing so, you have given them power over your life. Now, I can hear the protests rising within you. But Neville, you might say, these limitations are based on my past experiences, on the hard facts of my life. To this, I respond with a truth that may shake the very foundations of your understanding. Your past does not determine your future unless you allow it to do so. You see, my dear listeners, time is not a linear progression from past to future. It is a vast sea of possibilities, and you are the navigator of your ship. At any moment, you have the power to change course, to set sail for new horizons that you previously believed were beyond your reach. This power lies in your imagination, the most magnificent gift bestowed upon humanity. Your imagination is the workshop wherein you can fashion any reality you desire. It is the canvas upon which you can paint the masterpiece of your life. And it is through the conscious use of your imagination that you can begin to dissolve the limitations that have held you captive. Let me share with you a fundamental principle that underpins all of creance. Consciousness is the only reality. Everything you perceive in your outer world is but a reflection of your inner states of consciousness. The circumstances of your life, the successes and failures you experience, are all projections of your beliefs and assumptions. Therefore, to change your life, you must be willing to change your consciousness. You must be prepared to give up the limiting beliefs that have shaped your current reality. This, my friends, is where true courage is required, for it is far easier to cling to the familiar, even if it is unsatisfactory, than to venture into the unknown realms of possibility. But I implore you, summon the courage to challenge your limitations. Dare to imagine a life beyond the boundaries you have accepted. For in that daring lies the seed of your transformation. Consider the great figures of history who achieved the seemingly impossible. The Wright brothers, who dared to believe man could fly. Edison, who illuminated the world with his persistence. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who dreamed of equality in the face of overwhelming opposition. These individuals did not accept the limitations of their time. They dared to imagine a different reality. And through the power of their imagination, they brought that reality into being. You, my dear listeners, possess the same power. The only difference between you and these great figures is that they refused to accept the limitations imposed upon them by society or their own doubts. They were willing to give up their present limitations, and in doing so, they changed the course of history. Now, you might be wondering, how do I begin this process of giving up my limitations? The answer lies in a practice I have long advocated, the art of revision. This powerful technique allows you to rewrite your past and consequently reshape your future. Imagine for a moment that your life is a play, and you are both the lead actor and the playwright. The scenes you have lived up to this point have been scripted by your past beliefs and assumptions. But now, armed with the knowledge of your true creative power, you can rewrite these scenes. Each night, as you lay your head upon your pillow, take a few moments to review the events of your day. But do not simply replay them as they occurred. Instead, revise them. See them unfolding in a way that aligns with your desires. If you encountered failure, reimagine it as success. If you experienced lack, visualize abundance. If you felt fear, replace it with courage. This practice of revision is not mere fantasy or escapism. It is a powerful tool for reprogramming your subconscious mind. For your subconscious does not distinguish between what you vividly imagine and what you actually experience in the physical world. By consistently revising your day, You are laying down new tracks in your subconscious, creating new patterns of thought and belief. As you persist in this practice, you will find that your outer world begins to conform to your revised inner world. The limitations you once accepted as immutable facts will begin to dissolve, replaced by new possibilities and opportunities. But revision is just the beginning. To truly give up your present limitations, you must be willing to live from the end. This means assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, even when your senses deny its reality. Suppose you desire financial abundance, but your current circumstances show only lack and struggle. The conventional approach would be to work harder, to strive and strain against your circumstances. But I say to you, this approach only reinforces your limitations. Instead, I urge you to assume the feeling of wealth and abundance now. How would you feel if you were already in possession of the financial security you desire? What thoughts would occupy your mind? How would you carry yourself? What decisions would you make? Live from this state of consciousness. Feel the relief, the joy, the sense of freedom that comes with financial abundance. Do this not once or twice, but consistently, persistently, until it becomes your dominant state of being. You see, my friends, the outer world must conform to your inner assumptions. This is law. Therefore, by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are setting in motion the forces that will bring your desire into physical manifestation. Now, I can hear the skeptics among you raising objections. But Neville, you might say, how can I feel wealthy when my bank account is empty? How can I feel healthy when my body is racked with pain? How can I feel loved when I'm alone? Your senses show you only the effects, never the cause. What you see in your outer world is the result of past thoughts and beliefs. But the power to change lies in the present moment, in your ability to choose a new state of consciousness regardless of external circumstances. This requires faith. Not blind faith in an external power, but faith in the creative power of your own imagination. It requires the courage to deny the evidence of your senses and to live as though your desire were already a fact. Remember, the Bible tells us faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Your faith, your unwavering belief in the reality of your imagined state is the very substance that will clothe your desire in physical form. Let me share with you a personal experience that illustrates this principle. Many years ago, I found myself in New York City, penniless and without prospects. The limitations of my circumstances seemed overwhelming, but I refused to accept them as final. Instead, I began to imagine myself as a successful lecturer, sharing these very principles with eager audiences. I felt the satisfaction of standing on stage, hearing the applause, sensing the impact of my words. I lived in this imaginal state consistently, denying the evidence of my senses that told me I was a failure. And do you know what happened? Within a short time, opportunities began to present themselves. I was invited to give lectures, first to small groups, then to larger audiences. My reputation grew, and soon I found myself traveling the country, sharing these truths with thousands. This transformation did not occur because I struggled against my circumstances or because I was particularly gifted. It happened because I was willing to give up my present limitations. I dared to imagine a different reality and to live from that imagination. You, my dear listeners, can do the same. Whatever limitations you currently face, be they financial, physical, emotional, or spiritual, you have the power to transcend them. But you must be willing to give them up. You must be courageous enough to imagine and feel a new reality, even when every outer circumstance seems to contradict it. Now, let us delve deeper into the mechanics of this transformative process. To give up your present limitations, you must first become aware of them. This awareness is not about dwelling on your problems or reinforcing your current state. Rather, it's about recognizing the thoughts and beliefs that have created your present circumstances. Take a moment now to reflect on the areas of your life where you feel limited. Perhaps you believe you're not intelligent enough to pursue higher education. Maybe you think you're too old to start a new career. Or perhaps you've convinced yourself that you're not attractive enough to find a loving partner. These beliefs, my friends, are not facts. They are assumptions you have accepted as truth. But just as you have accepted them, you have the power to reject them and replace them with new, empowering beliefs. The process begins with a simple yet profound shift in your thinking. Instead of saying, I can't, start saying, I am. Instead of focusing on what you lack, direct your attention to what you desire to be, do, or have. For instance, if you've been telling yourself, I can't afford that, replace it with, I'm abundantly prosperous. If you've been thinking, I'm not smart enough, change it to, I'm intelligent and capable. If you've believed, I'm too old, affirm instead, I am the perfect age to begin anew. These new statements may feel false at first. Your rational mind, conditioned by years of limiting beliefs, may rebel against them. But remember, you are not trying to convince your rational mind. You are speaking directly to your subconscious, which accepts as true whatever you impress upon it with feeling and persistence. This is where the power of your imagination comes into play. As you make these new statements, create vivid mental images that support them. See yourself living the life these statements imply. Feel the emotions associated with this new state of being. If you're affirming abundance, see yourself easily paying your bills, generously donating to causes you care about, enjoying luxurious vacations. Feel the relief, the joy, the sense of security that comes with financial freedom. If you're claiming intelligence and capability, imagine yourself confidently tackling challenging tasks, receiving accolades for your work, sharing your knowledge with others. Feel the satisfaction, the pride, the excitement of fully expressing your intellectual potential. If you're asserting that you're the perfect age for new beginnings, visualize yourself embarking on exciting new ventures, learning new skills with ease, inspiring others with your enthusiasm and vitality. Feel the energy, the optimism, the sense of unlimited possibility that comes with this mindset. The key here is to make these mental images as vivid and as emotionally charged as possible. Your subconscious mind responds to the language of feeling and imagery. The more real you can make these imaginal scenes, the more quickly they will be accepted by your subconscious and reflected in your outer world. I must caution you, this process requires persistence. You cannot expect to overturn years of limiting beliefs with a single affirmation or visualization. Just as a farmer must tend his crops daily, you must nurture your new beliefs consistently. Make it a daily practice to affirm your new state of being. Spend time each day in quiet contemplation, immersing yourself in the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Do this upon waking and before sleeping, when your subconscious mind is most receptive. As you persist in this practice, you will begin to notice subtle shifts in your outer world. Opportunities that align with your new state of consciousness will start to appear. You'll find yourself making decisions and taking actions that support your desired reality. When faced with these new opportunities, they retreat into their old patterns of thought and behavior. They allow their present limitations to resurface, sabotaging their progress. This is why I emphasize the need to be willing to give up your present limitations. It's not enough to imagine a new reality. You must be prepared to step into it when it begins to manifest. If you've been affirming financial abundance and suddenly an opportunity for increased income presents itself, you must be willing to embrace it, even if it challenges your comfort zone. If you've been claiming intelligence and capability and find yourself offered a chance to demonstrate these qualities, you must be ready to rise to the occasion, even if it feels daunting. Remember, your outer world is always reflecting your inner state. If you maintain your new state of consciousness, your outer world must conform to it. This is law. But if you allow yourself to be pulled back into old patterns of thought and behavior, you will perpetuate your present limitations. This is where faith becomes crucial. Not blind faith, but faith born of understanding. Understanding that your imagination creates reality, that your assumptions shape your world, that consciousness is the only reality. When doubt creeps in, as it inevitably will, remind yourself of this truth. Recall times in your life when your imagination has created your reality, even if in small ways. Perhaps you strongly imagined receiving a call from a friend and they called. Maybe you visualized finding the perfect parking spot in a crowded lot. And there it was. These seemingly small manifestations operate on the same principle as the greater changes you now seek to create. Moreover, look to the great achievements of humanity for inspiration. Every invention, every scientific breakthrough, every social change began as an idea, an imaginal act that defied the limitations of its time. The airplane, the telephone, the computer, all of these were once deemed impossible. Yet individuals dared to imagine them, to assume their reality, and in doing so brought them into being. You, my dear listeners, are no different from these visionaries. You possess the same creative power. The only difference lies in your willingness to use it, to dare to imagine beyond your present limitations. Now, let us address a common obstacle that many face on this journey of transformation: the opinions and influences of others. As you begin to give up your present limitations, you may encounter resistance from those around you. Friends, family, colleagues may attempt to pull you back into your old patterns of thought and behavior. This is natural. People become accustomed to seeing you in a certain way, and your transformation may challenge their own limiting beliefs. But remember that opinions are based on your past expression, not on your infinite potential. You must be willing to stand firm in your new consciousness, even in the face of opposition or disbelief from others. This doesn't mean you need to argue or try to convince anyone of your new reality. In fact, it's often best to keep your inner work private, at least in the beginning stages. Instead, maintain your new state internally, regardless of external circumstances or opinions. Continue to live from the end, feeling and acting as though your desire is already fulfilled. As you do this, you will find that the outer world, including the people in it, will gradually adjust to your new vibration. Remember the words attributed to Mahatma Gandhi: be the change you wish to see in the world. As you change your inner world, your outer world must follow suit. Now, let's explore another vital aspect of giving up your present limitations: the release of attachment to specific outcomes. This may seem counterintuitive at first. After all, aren't we focusing on manifesting specific desires? The key here is to understand the difference between the essence of your desire and its particular form. When you tap into the essence of what you truly want, be it love, abundance, health, or success, you open yourself to infinite possibilities for its manifestation. For instance, if you desire financial abundance, don't become fixated on winning the lottery or receiving a specific sum of money from a particular source. Instead, focus on the feeling of abundance, the sense of security and freedom that comes with financial well-being. By doing so, you allow the universe to bring your desire to you in ways that may far exceed your limited imagination. Similarly, if you desire a loving relationship, don't become attached to a specific person or a particular scenario. Focus instead on the feeling of being loved, cherished, and in a fulfilling partnership. This opens the door for love to enter your life in perhaps unexpected but perfectly aligned ways. This release of attachment also helps to dissolve the anxiety and desperation that often accompany strong desires. When you trust in the perfect unfolding of your imagination, when you know that what you have assumed as true must manifest, you can relax into the present moment, enjoying the journey of transformation. As you practice living from the end, assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you may notice an interesting phenomenon. Your desires themselves begin to evolve. As you give up your present limitations, you may find that what once seemed like an ultimate goal now appears as just a stepping stone to even greater possibilities. This is the nature of spiritual and personal growth. As you expand your consciousness, as you release the shackles of limitation, you open yourself to ever greater expressions of your infinite potential. Therefore, be willing to let your desires evolve. Don't cling to old goals out of habit or fear. As you give up your present limitations, allow yourself to dream bigger, to imagine grander possibilities for your life and for the world. Now, my dear friends, as we approach the final stretch of our discourse, I want to address a question that may be arising in your minds. What if I fail? What if I try to give up my limitations and nothing changes? Failure is impossible if you truly understand and apply these principles. What may appear as failure is often just a temporary misalignment between your inner and outer worlds. It's a signal to examine your consciousness more closely, to root out any lingering doubts or contradictory beliefs. If you find that your outer world is not changing as rapidly as you'd like, don't despair. Instead, use this as an opportunity to deepen your practice. Ask yourself, am I truly living from the end? Am I maintaining the feeling of my wish fulfilled consistently? Am I allowing contradictory thoughts and feelings to persist? Often what seems like failure is simply a call to greater faithfulness to your imaginal act. It's an invitation to strengthen your resolve, to deepen your understanding, to persist in the face of apparent opposition. Remember, the outer world may take time to reflect your inner changes. Just as a ship doesn't turn on a dime, your life circumstances may not transform overnight. But if you maintain your new state of consciousness, if you persist in living from the end, your outer world must eventually conform to your inner reality. Moreover, what appears as a setback or failure often contains within it the seeds of an even greater manifestation. Many of history's great successes came on the heels of apparent failures. The key is to maintain your faith, to hold fast to your new state of consciousness, regardless of outer appearances. As we near the conclusion of our time together, I want to leave you with a powerful exercise to help you give up your present limitations. This exercise, which I call the ladder of ascension, will help you systematically release your limiting beliefs and ascend to higher states of consciousness. Imagine before you a grand, golden ladder reaching up into the heavens. Each rung of this ladder represents a state of consciousness, a level of being. The lower rungs represent states of limitation, lack, and fear. The higher rungs represent states of abundance, love, and unlimited possibility. Now see yourself standing on the rung that represents your current state of consciousness. Look up the ladder and choose a higher state that you wish to embody. This could be a state of financial abundance, radiant health, loving relationships, or any other desired state of being. Close your eyes and imagine yourself climbing the ladder, moving towards this higher state. As you ascend, feel yourself shedding your limitations. With each step, feel yourself becoming lighter, freer, more aligned with your true unlimited nature. When you reach the rung that represents your desired state, pause there. Look around you from this new vantage point. How does the world appear from here? How do you feel in this new state of being? Allow yourself to fully experience the reality of this higher consciousness. Now open your eyes, but maintain the feeling of this elevated state. As you go about your day, continually remind yourself that you are operating from this higher level of consciousness. Make decisions, interact with others, and perceive the world from this new state of being. Practice this exercise daily, always choosing a higher rung, always expanding your consciousness. As you do, you will find your present limitations falling away, replaced by an ever-expanding sense of possibility and power. My dear friends, as we come to the close of our discussion, I want to impress upon you one final truth. The journey of giving up your present limitations is not just about personal gain or individual success. It is about stepping into your true identity as a creative force in the universe. As you release your limitations, as you expand your consciousness, you become a beacon of light in the world. Your transformation inspires and uplifts those around you. Your expanded consciousness contributes to the elevation of all consciousness. Remember, we are all one. Your liberation from limitation serves not just you, but all of humanity. As you give up your present limitations, you help to dissolve the collective limitations that bind our world. Therefore, I urge us, be bold in your imagining. Be courageous in your assumption of new states of being. Be persistent in your faithfulness to your imaginal acts. For in doing so, you're not just changing your own life. You are participating in the transformation of the world. Go forth from this place with a new resolve. Know that you are not bound by any limitation unless you choose to accept it. Know that within you lies the power to create any reality you can imagine. Know that you are, in truth, unlimited being, temporarily expressing itself in human form. Dare to give up your present limitations. Dare to imagine a life beyond what you have previously thought possible. Dare to assume the feeling of your wishes fulfilled. As you do, you will find that the entire universe conspires to bring your imagined reality into being. Remember, consciousness is the only reality. You are that consciousness. You are the creator of your world. Embrace this truth, live from it, and watch as your life transforms in ways more wonderful than you could have ever imagined. Thank you, my dear friends, for your attention and your willingness to embark on this journey of transformation. May you go forth and create lives of unparalleled joy, abundance, and fulfillment. The power is yours. Use it wisely. Use it lovingly, and use it now.
Let me tell you a great truth that most of the world has yet to comprehend. You are not what you appear to be. You are not this limited mortal being trapped in circumstances. You are all imagination, and imagination is God. Therefore, you are God in the most literal sense, temporarily occupying a garment of flesh to experience your own wonderful creation. And just as God can speak worlds into existence, you too possess this same creative power to speak your world into being. Now, I know this may seem fantastic to some of you, but I am not here to theorize or philosophize. I am here to share with you what I know to be true through my own experience and the experiences of countless others who have applied this law. The transformation you seek in 2025 is not something that will happen to you. It is something that must happen within you first. Consider this: when you go to your home tonight and prepare for sleep, you will naturally disappear from this world of Caesar. Your physical body will rest, but your consciousness, your true self, remains ever active, ever aware. This simple act of daily disappearance holds the key to your transformation. For in that state between waking and sleeping lies the most fertile soil for planting the seeds of your desires. Let me tell you exactly what I mean. When you desire to transform any aspect of your life, you must first learn to disappear from your current state of consciousness. Just as you naturally disappear from this world when you sleep, you must learn to disappear from your present concept of self. This is not a metaphor. I am speaking of an actual psychological technique that, when mastered, will transform your entire life with mathematical precision. Now let us delve deeper into this principle. The Bible, which is not a historical document but a psychological drama, tells us, "Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." This transformation is not something that happens gradually through external effort. It happens instantly when you succeed in disappearing from your current state of consciousness and occupying the state of your wish fulfilled. Think of it this way: right now you hold a certain concept for yourself. You may see yourself as lacking in some way, perhaps financially limited or unfulfilled in your relationships, or restricted in your career. This self-concept feels solid and real because you have given it life through your attention and belief. But I tell you, it is nothing more than a garment you have worn so long you have forgotten it. It's not your true self. The secret to transformation in 2025 lies not in adding something new to your current state, but in completely disappearing from it. You must die to your present concept of self. And this death is not a physical death, but a psychological one. It is the complete abandonment of all that you now consider yourself to be. Let me share with you a simple but powerful technique. Tonight, when you lay your head upon your pillow, instead of reviewing the day's events or worrying about tomorrow, consciously choose to disappear from your present circumstances. Feel yourself sink deeper and deeper into the awareness of being who you wish to be. Do not think of how you will become this person. That is the old way of thinking that keeps you bound to your current state. Instead, yield completely to the feeling of being your desired self. If you wish to be wealthy, feel the naturalness of wealth. If you seek perfect health, feel the lightness and vitality of a perfectly healthy body. If you desire a loving relationship, feel the warmth and security of being deeply loved. The secret is to persist in this feeling. until it becomes more real to you than your physical surroundings. You see, in 2025, you are not trying to change things in the world of Caesar. You are claiming your rightful place as the operant power of your universe. The outer world, no matter how solid it appears, is nothing more than a shadow, a reflection of your inner assumptions. Change the assumption, and you change the reflection. This is the law. I am reminded of a lady who came to me in dire circumstances. She was facing financial ruin, her relationships were in shambles, and her health was failing. She asked me what she should do to change her life. I told her exactly what I'm telling you now. Disappear completely from that state. She looked at me bewildered, expecting some complex system of affirmations or external actions. But I told her, your outer world is nothing more than your inner conversations objectified. Change your inner conversation, and you change everything. She began to practice this principle. Each night before sleep, she would disappear completely from her troubled state and assume the feeling of being the person she wished to be. She would feel the satisfaction of financial abundance, the joy of harmonious relationships, the vitality of perfect health. Within 3 months, her entire world transformed. Money came to her through unexpected channels. Her relationships healed in ways she could never have planned, and her health restored itself naturally. This was not coincidence or luck. It was the perfect working of law. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Neville, my circumstances are different. You don't understand my particular situation? I tell you, circumstances do not matter. Your current situation, no matter how desperate or seemingly permanent, is nothing more than a shadow cast by your previous assumptions. Change the assumption, and the shadow must change. In 2025, you must learn to distinguish between what Blake called the reality and its shadow. Your true reality is not what your senses show you. It is what your imagination claims it to be. The world of Caesar, with all its limitations and problems, is merely a shadow. You are the light casting that shadow, and you can change it at will by changing your conception of self. Let me give you a specific technique for this transformation. I call it the art of assumption. When you wish to transform any aspect of your life, you must first ask yourself, how would I feel if I were already the person I wish to be? Then, in that quiet moment before sleep, you must generate that feeling with all the intensity you can muster. Do not worry about the how. The how is not your concern. Your only task is to remain faithful to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. The infinite intelligence within you, call it God, call it your subconscious mind, call it what you will, knows exactly how to bring about the conditions necessary for the fulfillment of your desire. Remember, in 2025, you are not trying to make things happen. You are allowing them to happen by assuming the right state of consciousness. This is why I tell you to disappear from your present state. As long as you remain mentally tied to your current circumstances, trying to improve them or fight against them, you perpetuate them. Consider the story of the prodigal son. This parable is not about a wayward youth who physically returned home. It is about consciousness returning to its rightful state. The far country where he wasted his substance is the state of consciousness where you currently find yourself if you are not experiencing your desires. The Father's house where there is abundance and joy is the state of consciousness you wish to occupy. The journey home is not a physical journey, but a psychological one. It is the journey of disappearing from one state of consciousness and appearing in another. And just as the father in the parable did not ask where the son had been or what he had done, your own wonderful human imagination does not care about your past or your present circumstances. It only responds to what you are conscious of being now. In 2025, you must learn to be ruthless with yourself in this regard. When you catch yourself thinking from your old state of consciousness, thinking thoughts of limitation or lack, you must immediately disappear from that state. Do not fight these thoughts. Fighting them gives them power. Simply withdraw your attention from them and place it fully on the feeling of your wish fulfilled. This is what the scripture means when it says, leave the dead to bury their dead. Your old states of consciousness, your old problems and limitations are the dead. Let them bury themselves. Your task is to occupy the new state, to live from the assumption that what you desire is already yours. Now let me share with you another vital aspect of this transformation. Your outer world is nothing more than your inner conversations objectified. What are you saying to yourself throughout the day? What mental conversations do you carry on with others? These conversations, these inner debates and discussions, are creating your future experiences. In 2025, you must become aware of these inner conversations and deliberately change them to align with your desires. If you wish to be wealthy, what kinds of conversations would you have if you were already wealthy? If you seek perfect health, what would your inner dialogue be if you were already in perfect health? Begin now to have these conversations internally. This is not pretense or self-deception. This is the actual creative process by which your world is formed. Your inner conversations are the breeding ground of your future experiences. Change the conversation and you change the experience. This is law. Remember, the Bible tells us, in the beginning was the Word. This is not referring to spoken words, but to your inner speech, your self-talk, your mental conversations. These are the words that create your world. In 2025, become conscious of these conversations and deliberately choose ones that imply the fulfillment of your desires. Let me tell you of a gentleman who came to me seeking to transform his career. He was stuck in a position he hated, feeling trapped and unable to advance. I told him to change his inner conversations about his work. Instead of mentally complaining about his current position, he began to have inner conversations implying he was already in his desired position. He would mentally hear congratulations from colleagues, discuss his new responsibilities with imaginary co-workers, feel the satisfaction of doing work he loved. Within weeks, an opportunity appeared that perfectly matched his desires. This was not coincidence, it was the law in operation. Now, some of you might be wondering about timing. You might be thinking, how long will this take? When will I see results? I tell you, time is purely psychological. What seems to take months or years in Caesar's world can happen in an instant when you succeed in reaching the right state of consciousness. In 2025, you must learn to live in the end. The end is the feeling of your wish fulfilled. When you truly capture this feeling and maintain it, time dissolves. The events and circumstances necessary for the manifestation of your desire will unfold naturally and effortlessly. This is why I tell you to disappear from your present state. As long as you are conscious of time, as long as you are waiting for something to happen, you are not living in the end. You are still caught in the consciousness of absence, of wanting, of seeking. This consciousness can only create more wanting, more seeking. Instead, assume the consciousness of already being what you wish to be. Feel it so intensely that it crowds out all other thoughts and feelings. This is what it means to pray without ceasing, to maintain the feeling of your wish fulfilled regardless of appearances. Remember the words of Scripture before they call, I will answer. This means that the fulfillment of your desire already exists. It is not something to be created. It is something to be claimed through your assumption of the right state of consciousness. In 2025, You must learn to trust this process completely. Do not be like doubting Thomas, needing to see before you believe. Be like the Master who said, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believed." Your imagination, fed by your assumption and sustained by your inner conversations, is creating your future now. Let me give you another technique for this transformation. I call it revision. Each night before you sleep, review the events of your day. But do not review them as they occurred. Revise them to match your desired state of being. See them happening in a way that implies the fulfillment of your desires. This is not merely positive thinking or wishful daydreaming. This is actively engaging your creative power to reshape your world. When you revise an event, you are actually changing the seed from which future events will grow. This is why the scripture says the former things shall not be remembered or come into mind. In 2025, make revision a daily practice. If you had an unpleasant encounter, revise it to be harmonious. If you faced a financial setback, revise it to show abundance. If you experienced any lack or limitation, revise it to demonstrate fulfillment and expansion. Do this faithfully, and you will be amazed at how your world begins to transform. Remember, you are not trying to change things, you are changing yourself. When you change your concept of self, when you succeed in occupying a new state of consciousness, the outer world must change to reflect this inner transformation. This is law. Let me tell you of another success story. A woman came to me in deep depression. She had lost her job, her savings were depleted, and she felt completely worthless. I taught her this principle of revision. Each night she would revise her day to show herself as successful, prosperous, and deeply fulfilled. At first it seemed mechanical, even foolish to her, but she persisted. Within weeks, her entire world began to shift. Opportunities appeared that she could never have planned. People from her past contacted her with profitable ventures. Her bank account began to grow. Most importantly, her feeling of worthlessness disappeared completely. This transformation didn't happen because she changed things in the outer world. It happened because she successfully disappeared from her old state of consciousness and occupied a new one. The outer changes were simply the shadow adjusting to match the new light. In 2025, you must become aware of another crucial principle. Everyone in your world is yourself pushed out. Every person you encounter is simply playing the part that your consciousness has assigned them. Change your consciousness, and they must change their behavior toward you. This is why it's futile to try to change others or to blame them for your circumstances. They are simply reflecting back to you your own state of consciousness. When you successfully disappear from a state of consciousness that attracts negative experiences, the people in your world must either change their behavior or disappear from your life. Remember, consciousness is the only reality. Everything else, people, circumstances, events, are simply shadows cast by your consciousness. Change the consciousness and the shadows must change. This is not theory, this is law. Let me share with you one final technique for your transformation in 2025. I call it the congratulatory scene. Select a scene that would imply the fulfillment of your desire. Make it a scene where someone is congratulating you on having achieved your goal. Feel the handshake, hear the words of congratulation, experience the joy of achievement. Make this scene so vivid, so real, that when you open your eyes, you will feel as though it actually happened. Do this night after night until the feeling of achievement becomes your dominant feeling. This is not visualization or positive thinking. This is entering into a state of consciousness where your desire is already fulfilled. When you succeed in making this state feel natural to you, when you can live and move and have your being in it, your outer world must reshape itself to match this inner conviction. In 2025, you must learn to trust this process completely. Do not be concerned with the how. Do not try to make things happen. Simply occupy the right state of consciousness and let the infinite intelligence within you bring about the manifestation in its own perfect way. Remember, the outside world is dead, subsisting only on the life you give it through your attention and belief. Withdraw your attention from unwanted conditions. Give your full attention and allegiance to your desired state. Live from that state, think from that state, speak from that state. Your transformation in 2025 is not something that will happen to you. It is something that must happen within you. When you successfully disappear from your current state of consciousness and fully occupy the state of your wish fulfilled, the outer world has no choice but to transform itself accordingly. This is the law, and the law does not fail. It operates with mathematical precision. Your task is simply to apply it faithfully, persistently, until your desired state becomes your natural state. Then you will understand the truth of the statement, all things are possible to him who believes. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, remember this: you are all imagination. The world you experience is simply your imagination pushed out. In 2025, claim your rightful place as the operant power in your universe. Disappear completely from states of lack and limitation. Occupy fully the state of your wish fulfilled. Do this faithfully, persist in it. And I promise you, your world must transform to match your new conception of self. This is not magic, not positive thinking, not wishful dreaming. This is the law of consciousness in operation, and it never fails. Let this be your practice in 2025. Die daily to your old self, to your old concepts and limitations. Be born anew each day in the consciousness of your wish fulfilled. Live from that consciousness. Think from it. Speak from it. Do this, and you will experience the truth of the statement, all things work together for good to them that love God. And remember, God is your own wonderful human imagination. The transformation you seek is already complete in the imagination of God, your imagination. Your task is simply to enter into that completion, to occupy it fully, to live from it faithfully. Do this, and watch your world transform in ways you could never have planned or anticipated. For in 2025, you are not seeking to add something new to your life. You are claiming what is already yours by divine.